Hello everyone, mercy and blessings of God be upon you. Today is the story of the First World War. Please like and subscribe and follow the video. The outbreak of World War I. World War I is the first major international conflict of the 20th century. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the Austro-Hungarian Crown Prince, and his wife, Archduchess Sophie, in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914, sparked fighting that began in August 1914 and continued on several fronts for the next 4 years. Forces of Entente and Center in World War I. During World War I, the Entente powers Britain, France, Serbia, the Russian Empire, later joined by Italy, Greece, Portugal, Romania, and the United States, and the Central Powers Germany and Austria-Hungary, later joined by the Ottoman Empire and Bulgaria. Combat range. At first there was enthusiasm on all sides for a quick and decisive victory. This enthusiasm faded as the war faltered. This road became a dead end for costly battles and trench warfare, especially on the war's Western Front. The system of trenches and fortifications in the West spanned at its longest some 475 miles. It spread almost from the North Sea to the Swiss border. For most fighters from North America and Western Europe, their experience in the war was trench warfare. On the other hand, the extensive extension of the Eastern Front prevented large-scale trench warfare. The scale of the conflict was still equal to the Western Front. Heavy fighting also occurred in northern Italy, in the Balkans, and in Ottoman Turkey. The fighting also took place at sea and, for the first time, in the air. Impact of the United States entry into the war and the Russian Revolution. A decisive change in the fighting occurred in April 1917 when Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare policy brought the United States out of its isolation and pushed it into the conflict. The new troops and materials of the American Expeditionary Force, under General John J. Pershing, with the tight blockade of German ports, eventually helped shift the balance of the war effort in favor of the Entente nations. This newly acquired advantage of the Entente forces was initially balanced by the events in the eastern sphere of the war. Since early 1917, Russia, one of the Entente's main powers, has been in turmoil. 2 revolutions occurred in 1917. The first revolution overthrew the imperial rule, and the second helped the Bolsheviks seize power. These events are referred to as the Russian Revolution. The immediate result of the Russian Revolution on the European sphere was a brutal and lasting civil war in the Russian lands, 1917 to 1922, and the decision of the new Bolshevik leadership to establish a separate peace with Tsarist Germany. When negotiations faltered due to German demands, the German army launched an all-out offensive on the Eastern Front, leading to the conclusion of a peace treaty at Brest-Litovsk on March 6, 1918. The surrender of the Central Powers German forces had some success. They pulled Bolshevik Russia out of the war in late winter 1918 and reached the gates of Paris during the summer. Despite these German successes, the Entente armies repelled the German army at the Marne. They advanced steadily against the German frontier on the Western Front in the summer and fall months of 1918, known as the 100 Days of Attack. The Central Powers began to surrender, starting with Bulgaria and the Ottoman Empire in September and October. On November 3, Austro-Hungarian forces signed an armistice near Padua, Italy. In Germany, the rebellion of the seamen in Kiel led to a large-scale rebellion in the German coastal cities and in the principal municipal areas of Hanover, Frankfurt, and Munich. Truce on November 9, 1918. In the midst of widespread unrest and after the German army leaders abandoned Emperor Wilhelm II, Kaiser, the latter abdicated the German throne. On the same day, Social Democratic Party representative Philipp Seidmann declared Germany a republic and appointed a transitional government led by Friedrich Ebert. 2 days later, the representatives of Germany, led by the representative of the Catholic Central Party, Zentrum, Matthias Risberger, met with a delegation of the victorious Entente forces led by French Field Marshal Ferdinand Foch, Commander-in-Chief of the Entente forces, in a train carriage in the Compton Forest and agreed to the terms of the armistice. At 11:00 a.m. on November 11, 1918, fighting on the Western Front ceased. The Great War, as its contemporaries called it, ended, but the broad impact of the conflict on the international, political, economic and social spheres reverberated for decades. Military losses. The First World War was one of the most destructive wars in contemporary history. Nearly 10 million soldiers died as a result of the conflict, more than the number of armies killed in all wars during the previous 100 years. Although it is difficult to ascertain the exact number of casualties, it is estimated that 21 million men were injured in the battle. Part of the heavy losses to all parties to the conflict resulted from the use of new weapons such as machine guns and gas warfare, as well as the failure of military leaders to adjust their methods to the nature of war in which it was increasing, the use of machines. The policy of attrition, especially on the Western Front, cost the lives of hundreds of thousands of soldiers. July 1, 1916, is the day that saw the largest loss of life in a single day, and the British Army in the Somme alone suffered more than 57,000 casualties. Germany and Russia had the largest number of military deaths. They lost 1,773,700 and 1,700,000. France lost 16% of its enlisted forces, which is the highest death rate for the troops deployed. Civilian losses. No official body has made an accurate account of civilian casualties during the war years, but scholars have confirmed the deaths of as many as 13 million non-combatants as a direct or indirect result of the conflict. Military and civilian deaths rose at the end of the war with the spread of the Spanish flu, the most deadly influenza pandemic in history. Millions of people have been uprooted from their homes in Europe and Asia Minor by the conflict. Losses of property and industries reached catastrophic levels, especially in France and Belgium, where the fighting. Well, now our story is over and I belong. If you liked the video, and thanks for dropping by.